Hey, what's up? My name is Alex and I'm a professional music composer, and a couple weeks ago I made a Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringer main theme reaction. And that kind of blew up, and people started to ask me to make more analysis and reactions to other Final Fantasy XIV tracks. And due to popular demand, today we are doing Weight of the World, which is a track originally made for NieR Automata, and now it sounds like this. It's freaking epic. Love it. This sounds way more epic than I remember Weight of the World. For those of you who didn't play NieR Automata, Weight of the World is this beautiful emotional track which sounded very slow and super emotional. It made you feel bad after finishing the game because it plays on the credits and you're like, oh my god, it's super sad. But now it's super mega epic. Just from the first 10 seconds we can tell. And the reason for it is that rhythm. Super awesome. It just makes me like, oh man, I need to punch something. But now, here's why this is organized in a beautiful way. Basically, you have in this dun 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 riff, you have some big notes and some smaller notes that are helping the rhythm. The big notes are these ones. In the strings, you hear those notes the most. But then you also have these like smaller notes, which are being played with lower volume and are in between. So now it's... If we remove the green notes, you know, you lose that pathos of like, you know, so like having subdivisions in between those strings is what makes this track super epic. I love this choir. Sounds like super... It's giving me some Final Fantasy 15 vibe. And the choir is like those so, si, va, so. That's like articulation called staccato, is when you sing in shouts like that. And those notes, like they match the big notes, the accent that I showed you in the strings. And even the percussion, when the choir goes so, si, the perc's like so they do like big notes and then small, and that's what's giving us this epic feeling. And do you notice, sorry, I keep on stopping this, but do you notice like there's like a call and response like so, si, va, so, so that's also freaking awesome. Nice. It's so freaking hype, man. And do you notice how like he leaves space in between the melody? Bam, 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 silence. Bam, 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 silence. You know, like silence is a very powerful tool to use if you want to create sort of action. Well, if you did ba, 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 without ever letting the French horn rest, that invasive note that is being held forever wouldn't make us feel the beautiful rhythms underneath. So silence here is playing a big part in why this sounds freaking epic. That harp, amazing. Dude. Wow. Wait, what? Wait, what? What was that? That was freaking amazing. I need to hear it once again. Forgive me. It's beautiful. It keeps on getting higher and higher. So it's a very simple way to make the tension rise. You know, it's a device composers might use. Like do this sort of like the rhythm is always the same. The motion of the notes, the direction of the notes is always the same, but it keeps on going higher on the keyboard. So you feel that. You're like, oh. And then at the end, the final note, it goes down. So it's like, it takes you on this little ride and then it goes down. So there's like that dynamic, like that movement in the notes. And you're like, whoa, what happens next? And then, wow. Wow. Ba, 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 ba. And then you also have so what the brass goes down, but the choir, like you have this motion of going like separate ways for two instruments which are being very predominant in this part. That's a beautiful thing to do, especially when you like the notes that you're playing on one instrument and the notes you're playing on the other instrument harmonizing together, you know, because when you write music, you cannot just, you know, just do a thing where you play random notes like, yeah, whatever. No, you have to play notes that kind of fit in the same harmony. When you write a track, usually as a composer, you have to pick a scale, which might be something like... This is the A minor scale. And when you use, say, I write a track in A minor, that means you're only gonna use notes that are in that scale. And that way it's gonna be easier for you to write something that makes sense. But what's happening here, I believe, is that the beautiful thing that's happening is that at a certain point, I feel like there's a change of scale happening. The mood changes like very powerfully. There's so many changes in the scale. Like a scale is sort of like if you were a painter, the scale would be the palette of colors that you're using in a painting, right? Imagine that you're painting in a specific palette of colors, and then at a certain point, the painting changes colors completely. That's what's happening right now. This is Soken, master of orchestral music. Wow. That's awesome. I loved how Soken like reorchestrated this melody now, because it's obviously slightly different from the original, where it's like ba da 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 ba 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 da ba. Here's a ba 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 ba, and it leaves like space in between those different notes of the main melody. In leaving the spaces, he had to remove some of the notes that were being sang by the original singer in the NieR Automata version, but he left those spaces first because he wants this to sound like percussive and energetic, and second because he wants it to sound epic. And what's the best way to make something sound epic? I believe it's like call and response. So I want you to listen to this again, but not listen to the choir. Listen to what's underneath. What is playing when the choir is being silent? It's super amazing when you do this like call and responses where an instrument says something and the other instrument replies, and then he says something and the other replies, and then they come together in the final phrase. That's what's happening right now with the choir and the brass, and that's why this sounds so satisfying to hear. Like it leaves you the space to breathe, but it gives you so much. Oh. Okay. That's awesome. I believe the Final Fantasy arpeggio like works in anything, any track. Like personally, for every single Final Fantasy cover that I made, and I made many, I always hit the Final Fantasy arpeggio somewhere. It works very well here. What Soken had to do was to remove the main melody from Weight of the World, to give space to the prelude, and to make those harps, like the arpeggio, sound more defined in the track, because the track is epic. There's like epic brass and percussion and stuff, sounds super heavy. The harp is a much lighter instrument than that. So what he did is he added delay. If you notice, the harp, there's like echoes, something like that, you know? It's not like normal. It's more like that. And delay is something you can add on instruments to create echoes, and that kind of makes them feel more open, more wide, bigger, and more atmospheric and more noticeable. And I believe that this is it's an orchestral harp, but I believe there's also maybe a synthesizer that is playing with that harp, because that's one other thing that composers do. Sometimes we blend multiple instruments together to beefen them up, like you would blend ingredients when you're cooking to give them a more taste or something like that. This is beautiful. And I love that he introduced this choir now. So basically what happened is that in the first half of this passage, there was only the Final Fantasy Prelude arpeggio. And then before it gets boring, he puts this choir, which ends ba ba ba, like it ends with that note that makes you feel like, okay, I want to know what comes after, you know? So this whole track, well, it's a boss track. It needs to loop over many times over. It needs to create tension, and it needs to keep the tension there. So what's happening is like, ba, da, da. By ending this like structure with that note, it kind of edges you on to listen to what comes next. And I think many FF14 tracks, boss tracks, will have those sort of cadences and resolutions where you're like, oh, what happens next? And then the loop starts again. In fact, there's a loop again. As I said, I love this track. Sorry guys, I went a bit nerdy on this one, but it gave me so many music nerd moments. Sorry about that. But anyway, let me know what you think about this track. Like, what did you learn from this reaction? What was your favorite part of the track? And what track do you want me to do next? I was thinking about the twinning, but some people want me to do or something like that. I don't know which one I want to do. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more of this stuff, and feel free to check out my Final Fantasy covers, which this channel is full of them, because I'm a composer. Final Fantasy is my favorite thing in the world, and my goal or my dream is to make music for a Final Fantasy someday. So check those out. If you're interested, let me know what you think about them, if you would like to hear those in Final Fantasy. And that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one.